I never thought the last words my mother would say to me would be screamed across a dinner table. "You're ungrateful. Get out and never come back." Her face was red, twisted with rage over something so small I can barely remember what triggered it. Maybe I suggested she stop criticizing my career. My father sat there, silent, fork halfway to his mouth, saying nothing. I stood up, grabbed my jacket, and walked out without a word. What they didn't know was that for 3 years, I'd been secretly paying their mortgage, $2,300 every single month. The door closed behind me that Sunday evening, and I drove back to my apartment in silence. No music, no phone calls, just the hum of my car and the racing thoughts in my head. I'm Ronald, 32 years old, a software engineer living in Austin, Texas. That night changed everything, though I didn't know it yet. For the first week, I kept expecting my phone to ring. An apology, maybe. An explanation. Something. But there was nothing. My mother's words kept replaying in my mind. Get out and never come back. She'd said it with such conviction, such finality. My father hadn't even looked at me as I left. I went to work the next morning like nothing happened. My company, a mid-sized tech firm in downtown Austin, was in the middle of a major project. I sat at my desk, wrote code, attended meetings. My coworker Diana asked if I was okay. I said I was fine. I wasn't fine. By the second week, I'd told my girlfriend Sarah everything. We were sitting in her apartment, a cozy place near the hospital where she worked as a nurse. She listened to the whole story, her hand on mine. "You've been paying their mortgage for 3 years?" she asked, her eyes wide. "Yeah, they don't know it's me. I set up an automatic transfer. I found out 3 years ago that they were 2 months behind on payments. Dad had lost his job as a regional sales manager. Mom was only working part-time at Dillard's. I couldn't let them lose the house." "And they never thanked you?" "They don't know. I was worried they'd refuse if I told them. You know how pride works." Sarah squeezed my hand. "Maybe it's time to stop paying. They kicked you out, Ronald. You don't owe them anything." I'd been thinking the same thing. That night, I logged into my bank account and canceled the automatic transfer. It felt like cutting a cord. 3 years of secret support ended with a few clicks. My apartment was quiet that night. I lived alone in a modest one-bedroom place, about 20 minutes from my parents' house. The rent was $1,400 a month. Combined with their mortgage payment, I'd been spending $3,700 monthly just on housing. My salary was $95,000 a year, which sounds comfortable until you realize how much I'd been sacrificing. I should have been saving for my own house. I should have been building my future. Instead, I'd been propping up theirs. The thing is, I was the youngest of 3 kids. My older brother Marcus is a doctor in Seattle. My sister Jennifer is a lawyer in Boston. They were always the golden children. Marcus with his medical degree, Jennifer with her corner office. And me? I was just the guy who played with computers, as my mother liked to say. Growing up, nothing I did was ever good enough. When I got accepted to the University of Texas for computer science, my mother asked why I couldn't go to medical school like Marcus. When I landed my first job making $60,000 right out of college, my father asked why I wasn't making lawyer money like Jennifer. But when they needed help, who did they turn to? Nobody. They were too proud. That's why I never told them about the mortgage payments. I knew they'd see it as charity, as pity, so I let them believe their finances had magically worked out. Days 13 and 14 passed quietly. I went to the gym, worked on my projects, had dinner with Sarah. She was supportive, telling me I'd done the right thing by walking away. Her parents thought I should have stayed and worked it out, but Sarah understood. Or at least, I thought she did. Then came day 14. I was in a meeting at work, discussing database architecture with my team, when my phone started buzzing on the table. I glanced down and saw my father's name. My heart jumped. I stepped out of the conference room and looked at the message. Why haven't you paid the mortgage? The bank called. We're facing foreclosure. What kind of son are you? I stared at the screen, my hands shaking. They knew. They'd known I was paying. How long had they known? And instead of thanking me, instead of acknowledging what I'd done, this was their response. I typed back with trembling fingers. Oh, I thought I wasn't welcome in your lives. Interesting that you noticed the money stopped, though. I hit send and turned off my phone. My phone stayed off for the rest of that day. When I finally turned it back on that evening, I had 15 missed calls and 37 text messages. My mother, my father, even a few from numbers I didn't recognize. My mother's texts were a journey through every manipulation tactic in the book. The first few were angry. How dare you abandon us? Then desperate. We're going to lose our home. Then guilt-laden. After everything we've done for you. And finally the classic, we raised you better than this. My father's messages were more direct. Call me immediately. This is serious. You're making a huge mistake. I showed them all to Sarah. She read through them, her expression darkening. They've known you were paying, she said quietly. This whole time they knew. Yeah, that's what kills me. They knew, and they still treated me like garbage. You need to talk to them, Sarah said. At least to get answers. I didn't want to, but she was right. I needed to know how long they'd known, why they'd never said anything, and why they thought they could treat me this way. The next morning, I drove to their house. It was a nice place in a decent suburban neighborhood, a 3-bedroom ranch-style home worth about $350,000. I'd always loved this house growing up. Now it just felt like a monument to lies. My mother opened the door before I could knock. Her eyes were red and puffy. "Ronald," she said, her voice breaking. "Honey, come in, please." Honey. She never called me honey. Inside, my father was sitting at the kitchen table. He stood when he saw me, and for a moment, I thought he might actually hug me. He didn't. "We need to talk about this mortgage situation," he said. "No," I replied. "First, we need to talk about how long you've known I was paying it." My mother and father exchanged a glance. That glance told me everything. About 18 months. My father finally admitted. The bank mentioned the account holder's son during a phone call. We figured it out from there. 18 months. A year and a half of knowing I was helping them, and they'd never once acknowledged it. Never thanked me. Never stopped criticizing me. "Why didn't you say anything?" I asked. "We didn't want to embarrass you," my mother said. "We thought you wanted to do it quietly." "Embarrass me? You thought thanking me would embarrass me?" "We didn't want to make it awkward," my father said. I laughed. Actually laughed. The absurdity was too much. "So instead you just kept taking my money and treating me like I was worthless?" "We never said you were worthless," my mother protested. "You told me to get out and never come back. I was upset. You were criticizing my parenting. I suggested you stop commenting on my career choices. We were going in circles. This was pointless." I was about to leave when I heard the front door open. "Hello? Mom? Dad?" My brother Marcus walked into the kitchen, pulling a small suitcase behind him. He looked at me, and his expression hardened. "Ronald, glad you could finally show up. What are you doing here?" I asked. "Mom and Dad called me. Someone needs to be the responsible one in this family." I almost threw something at him. Marcus, who hadn't visited in 2 years. Marcus, who sent a birthday card once a year and called that family involvement. Marcus was here to lecture me about responsibility. "They called you to gang up on me," I said. "They called me because they're in crisis, and their youngest son abandoned them." "I didn't abandon anyone. I've been paying their mortgage for 3 years while you sent birthday cards from Seattle." Marcus had the decency to look uncomfortable, but only for a moment. "That's actually what I want to talk about," he said, pulling out his phone. "I've been in contact with a lawyer. A friend of mine from medical school who practices family law. My stomach dropped. À la vière? You created a dependency, Ronald. You established a pattern of financial support, and then you cut them off without warning. That's financial elder abuse. I couldn't breathe. Financial elder abuse? I'd been helping them, and now I was being accused of abuse? You can't be serious, I said. We're very serious, my father said. You put us in this position. You need to fix it. Fix it how? Marcus pulled out a folder and handed it to me. Inside were legal documents. A draft lawsuit. We're asking for 36 months of continued support, Marcus said. That's $2,300 per month, totaling $82,800. You can pay it in installments, or we can go to court. I looked at my parents. My mother was crying again. My father looked resolute. Marcus looked smug. You're actually going to sue me, I said, for helping you, for abandoning us. My mother corrected. I put the folder down on the table and walked toward the door. Ronald, wait, my father called. I turned back. I have nothing more to say to any of you. As I left, I heard Marcus say, he'll come around. Once he sees we're serious, he'll pay. I sat in my car for 10 minutes before I could drive. My hands were shaking too badly. I drove straight to a lawyer's office. Well, not straight. First, I called around frantically until I found someone who could see me that afternoon. Beth Patterson, a family law attorney whose office was in a strip mall near the university. She had good reviews online and a consultation fee I could barely afford. Beth was in her 50s, with gray hair pulled back in a practical bun and sharp eyes that seemed to assess everything at once. I told her the whole story. She took notes, asked questions, and when I finished, she leaned back in her chair. This is one of the more brazen cases I've seen, she said. But I need to be honest with you. They're not completely without a case. How? I was helping them. In Texas, if you establish a pattern of support for a dependent family member, there's legal precedent that can require you to continue that support. It's meant to protect elderly parents from being abandoned. The problem is, it can be abused. So they can actually sue me, they can sue you. Whether they'll win is another question. The fact that you never formalized the arrangement works in your favor. The fact that they never acknowledged it works in your favor. And if we can show they weren't actually dependent on you, that helps too. What do I need to do? First, I need to investigate their actual financial situation. If they're not as desperate as they claim, that undermines their case. Second, we need documentation of everything. Every payment you made, every interaction you had. Third, be prepared for this to get ugly. Family lawsuits always do. Beth's retainer was $5,000. I paid it with a credit card and felt sick. Over the next week, I was formally served with papers. My parents were actually suing me. The lawsuit claimed I had established a pattern of support creating dependency and then maliciously withdrawn said support without notice or alternative arrangement, causing immediate financial hardship and emotional distress. Reading those words, written in legal language about my own family, was surreal. My sister Jennifer called. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. Ronald, you need to drop this, she said without preamble. Drop what? They're suing me. Just pay them. It's easier than fighting. Easy for you to say. You haven't contributed anything. I send money for their birthdays. $200 a year doesn't count, Jennifer. Look, I know you're upset, but think about their health. Dad's blood pressure is through the roof. Mom isn't sleeping. Just settle this and move on. Why aren't you helping them if you're so concerned? I have my own family to support. You're single. You make good money. You can afford it. I hung up on her. Sarah was supportive, but even she seemed exhausted by the drama. We were having dinner at her place when she said, maybe Jennifer has a point. What? Not about paying them, but about settling. Is it worth all this stress? It's the principle, Sarah. I know. I'm just worried about you. You look terrible. You're not sleeping." She was right. I'd lost weight. I had dark circles under my eyes. My anxiety was through the roof. But it wasn't just the lawsuit. Work was falling apart too. I'd missed a critical deadline, a project worth $2 million to the company. And I'd let it slip because I was too distracted by my family drama. My boss Tom called me into his office. Tom was usually a decent guy, demanding but fair. Today he looked disappointed. "Ronald, what's going on with you?" "Personal issues. I'm handling it." "Are you?" "Because I'm hearing things." My blood ran cold. "What things?" "That you're involved in some kind of lawsuit. That there's family drama." "Look, normally I don't care about personal lives, but when it affects your work, it becomes my business." "It won't happen again. It already happened. We lost the client. They went with a competitor because we missed the deadline." "Tom, I'm sorry. I'll make it up. I think you need to take some personal leave. Get your life sorted out." Personal leave was code for, "We're pushing you out." I knew that. I need this job, Tom, and I need employees I can count on. Take 2 weeks. Figure out what you're doing. We'll talk when you get back. I walked out of his office in a daze. Around the office, people were whispering. Someone had leaked the lawsuit details. Everyone knew. Diana, my coworker, caught up with me at my desk. "Hey, is it true your family is suing you?" "Yeah, that's insane. If you need anything, I'm fine," I said, cutting her off. I wasn't fine. I was drowning. That night I looked at my bank account. My savings, which I'd been carefully building, were depleting rapidly. The lawyer's retainer. The missed payments on my own bills because I'd been too distracted. My credit card balance climbing. I'd been helping my parents, and now I was the one in financial trouble. Sarah came over that night. We didn't talk much. She held me while I tried not to fall apart completely. "It's going to be okay," she whispered. I wanted to believe her. The next morning, I woke up to my phone exploding with notifications. Not texts, this time. Social media. Marcus had posted something on his public page. I didn't follow him, but enough people tagged me that I saw it within minutes. "It breaks my heart to see what's happening in my family right now," he'd written. Elderly parents who dedicated their lives to raising their children, now facing foreclosure because one of those children decided they weren't worth supporting anymore. I won't name names, but if you're reading this and you've abandoned your parents in their time of need, I hope you can live with yourself. Family is supposed to be forever. The post had been shared 300 times. 300 times. People were commenting with their own stories of ungrateful children, with messages of support for Marcus and my parents, with condemnations of whoever this mystery villain was. Except it wasn't a mystery. Marcus had included just enough details that anyone who knew our family could figure it out. And in Austin's interconnected tech and medical communities, a lot of people knew our family. My phone started ringing. Aunts and uncles I hadn't spoken to in years. Cousins, family, friends. All of them had the same message. How could you abandon your parents? My cousin Patricia, who I'd been close to as a kid, sent me a long text message. "I never thought you'd be this kind of person, Ronald. Your parents are good people. They don't deserve this. I'm ashamed to be related to you right now." Nobody asked for my side of the story. Nobody wondered why I might have stopped paying. The narrative was set. I was the villain. I tried to post my own response, explaining that I'd been secretly paying their mortgage for 3 years, that they'd known and never acknowledged it, that they'd actually sued me. But it sounded defensive. It sounded like excuses. And Marcus's post had a 12-hour head start. My post got 17 likes and 2 shares. His had 700 likes by noon. Work got worse. Tom called me into his office again, even though I was technically on leave. "We need to talk about the optics of this situation," he said. "Optics? Your family drama is reflecting on the company. We're getting calls from clients asking about you. Someone sent us Marcus's post. I can't control what my brother posts on social media. I know. But we have to think about our reputation. I'm extending your leave to 30 days. Unpaid. Unpaid leave. I couldn't afford unpaid leave. Tom, please. It's not personal, Ronald. It's business. Get this sorted out, and we can talk about bringing you back. I knew what that meant. I was being phased out. 30 days to find a new job or fix an unfixable situation. That evening, Sarah came over. She looked nervous. "We need to talk," she said, and my heart sank. Those 4 words never mean anything good. Is this about the lawsuit? It's about everything. Ronald, I love you, but I can't do this anymore. Can't do what? The drama, the stress. Every day it's something new. My parents are asking me when I'm going to find someone more stable. My friends at the hospital keep asking about that situation with your boyfriend's family. I'm exhausted. I didn't choose this, I said. I know, but you're in it, and I can't be in it with you. I'm sorry. She left. Just like that. 8 months together, and she walked out because my family was a disaster. I sat alone in my apartment that night, surrounded by the wreckage of my life. No girlfriend, no job security, no family, just me and a lawsuit I couldn't afford to fight. I started going through old boxes, looking for something to distract myself. That's when I found the documents. They were in a box of things from my grandmother's house. My father's mother, who'd passed away 8 years ago. I'd loved her. She was kind, patient, everything my parents weren't. Among her things were legal documents. Trust documents. My grandmother had left me $60,000 in a trust. It was supposed to be given to me when I turned 30. I was now 32. I'd never received it. The documents showed my parents as trustees. They were supposed to manage the funds until I reached 30, then transfer everything to me. I called the bank listed on the documents. After being transferred 3 times, I finally got someone who could access the old records. That trust was dissolved 6 years ago, the banker told me. Dissolved? By who? The trustees. They submitted paperwork claiming they were managing the funds for the beneficiaries' benefit. There's a signed form here. Can you send me copies of everything? Sure. Give me your email. 20 minutes later, I was looking at documents showing that my parents had dissolved my grandmother's trust and taken the money. $60,000 that was supposed to be mine. The paperwork claimed they were using it for educational expenses and beneficiary welfare. But I'd paid for my own college with loans and scholarships. They'd never given me a dime of that money. I checked my credit card statements from 6 years ago, cross-referencing with the dates on the documents. 6 years ago was when my parents had done major renovations on their house. New kitchen, new bathrooms. They'd also taken a 3-week vacation to Europe. They'd stolen my inheritance. I called Beth, my lawyer, even though it was 9 at night. I found something, I told her. Beth met me at her office the next morning. I showed her everything. The trust documents, the dissolution paperwork, the bank statements, the timeline that showed exactly what my parents had done. This changes things significantly, Beth said, her eyes scanning the documents. They breached their fiduciary duty as trustees. This is theft, Ronald. Straight-up theft. Can we use it? Better than that. We can file a counterclaim. They're suing you for $82,800. You can countersue for $60,000 plus interest. At a conservative 3% annual compound interest over 8 years, that's approximately $72,000. Will it work? It's legitimate. You have documentation. They can't deny it. The question is whether they'll settle once they see you're willing to fight back. We filed the counterclaim that afternoon. My parents were served with papers 3 days later. My mother called me, hysterical. How can you sue your own parents? We gave you life. I didn't answer. Beth had advised me not to engage directly. My father left a voicemail. This is outrageous. That money was used for your benefit. The house improvements increased the value of your inheritance. The vacation was a family trip. I hadn't been invited on the vacation. I'd been in my second year of college, working 2 jobs to pay for textbooks. The lawsuit became more complicated. Both sides were now suing each other. The legal fees were climbing. I was up to $8,000 in costs, and we hadn't even gotten to the actual trial yet. Then, something strange happened. Marcus sent me an email. The subject line was settlement offer. I opened it, expecting more legal threats. Instead, it was surprisingly conciliatory. Ronald, this has gone too far. Let's settle this like adults. I've talked to Mom and Dad. They're willing to drop the lawsuit if you agree to pay 6 months of mortgage payments. That's $13,800 total. You drop your counterclaim, they drop theirs, and we all move on with our lives. Attached is the settlement proposal. Think about it. But Marcus had made a mistake. Attached to his email wasn't just the settlement proposal. There was another document. An email thread. An email thread from 3 months before the original blow-up at Sunday dinner. I opened it with shaking hands. The first email was from Marcus to my parents, dated 3 months before my mother told me to get out. Mom and Dad, I've been thinking about your financial situation. I know Ronald has been helping, but you can't rely on that forever. Here's an idea. What if you provoke him into stopping the payments? Then we sue for dependency. With a judgment in hand, you can sell the house. My friend Greg is a developer who's very interested in properties in your neighborhood. It's gentrifying fast. He'd give you a fair price, and I'd get a finder's fee for bringing him the deal. $20,000. We could all win here. My mother's response. That seems harsh. Ronald is trying to help. Marcus again. He's enabling your dependence. Better to force the issue now while you can still claim hardship. Trust me on this. My father. How would we provoke him? Marcus. Just criticize his job like you always do. But push harder. Make him mad enough to walk out. Then give it a few weeks and send the mortgage text. I'll fly in to back you up. Greg is ready to move quickly once the house is available. My mother. I don't know if I can do that to him. Marcus. You want to lose the house? Because that's the alternative. Ronald isn't going to pay forever anyway. This way, you get a payout and a fresh start. My father. When should we do this? Marcus. Next Sunday dinner. Just pick a fight. It doesn't matter about what. He'll probably storm out. He's always been too sensitive. I read the thread 3 times. The room was spinning. The whole thing had been planned. My mother's explosion wasn't spontaneous. It was orchestrated. Marcus had manipulated my parents into destroying their relationship with me. Also, he could make $20,000 from his developer friend. I forwarded the email thread to Beth with a single line. Does this change things? She called me within 5 minutes. Oh, it changes everything. This is conspiracy. This is fraud. This is my favorite kind of evidence because it's in their own words. Can you send me the complete headers? I want to verify this isn't spoofed. It's real. It came from Marcus's email address. Then we have them. All of them. I hired a private investigator next. It cost me $3,000 I didn't have, but Beth recommended it. The investigator, a former police detective named Ray, spent 2 weeks digging into Marcus's finances and found the rest of the story. Marcus was in financial trouble. Serious trouble. He had gambling debts in Seattle, totaling $120,000. He'd been taking loans from questionable people. The $20,000 finder's fee wasn't just a bonus. It was a lifeline. But there was more. Ray discovered that Marcus had power of attorney over my parents' finances. He'd convinced them to sign it over 2 years ago, claiming he could manage things better from Seattle. With that power of attorney, Marcus had been slowly draining their accounts, taking management fees of $500 here, $700 there. Over 3 years, He'd stolen approximately $35,000 from their own accounts. My parents didn't know. They'd given him control and trusted him. The developer friend, Greg, was part of a company that specialized in buying distressed properties below market value, flipping them, and selling them for huge profits. The finder's fee was actually a kickback scheme. Completely legal on paper, completely unethical in practice. Marcus had orchestrated the destruction of his own family for money. I showed everything to Beth. She smiled. Actually smiled. "We're going to destroy them in court," she said. But despite the evidence, despite the righteousness of my position, I was still falling apart. My 30 days of unpaid leave were almost up. My apartment lease was coming up for renewal, and the landlord wanted to raise the rent by $400 a month. I couldn't afford it. My savings were gone. My credit cards were maxed. I was 1 month away from financial disaster myself. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd been trying to save my parents from financial ruin, and now I was facing it myself. Sarah texted me once. "I heard about the evidence you found. I'm sorry about everything. I hope it works out." Too little. Too late. The court date was set. 2 weeks away. Beth was confident, but I was terrified. What if we lost? What if the judge didn't care about the email thread? What if my parents played the elderly victim card successfully? I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I was living on coffee and anxiety. My cousin Patricia sent another message. I saw Marcus's emails that leaked online. "I'm so sorry, Ronald. I should have listened to your side." Too late for that, too. The night before the trial, I sat in my apartment surrounded by boxes. I'd started packing, assuming I'd have to move whether I won or lost. I couldn't afford this place anymore. I thought about my grandmother. She would have been heartbroken to see what her family had become. She'd left me that money because she believed in me, because she wanted me to have a good start in life. And her own son, my father, had stolen it. I didn't sleep that night. The courthouse was downtown, a gray building that smelled like old paper and floor polish. Beth met me outside, carrying 2 briefcases full of documents. "Ready?" she asked. "No." "Good. Channel that nervous energy. You're the wronged party here. Don't forget that." Inside, my parents were already seated with their lawyer, a middle-aged man named Frank something. Marcus was there too, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Jennifer had flown in and was sitting behind them. None of them looked at me as I walked in. The judge was a woman in her 60s, named Judge Patricia Hernandez. Beth had told me she was fair but no nonsense. Frank, my parents' lawyer, went first. He painted a picture of devoted parents who'd sacrificed everything to raise 3 successful children. He talked about my father's job loss, my mother's part-time work, their financial struggles. He made them sound like victims of circumstance and a cruel son. The defendant established a pattern of support, Frank argued. For 3 years, Ronald financially supported his parents. They became dependent on this support. He created an expectation, a reliance. And then, over a minor disagreement, he withdrew that support without warning. This is textbook financial elder abuse. Marcus testified next. He talked about getting the phone call from our distraught parents, about flying in to help, about being shocked at my behavior. My brother made a commitment, Marcus said on the stand. He can't just walk away from that commitment because his feelings got hurt. Jennifer testified via video call from Boston. She echoed the same narrative. Poor parents, ungrateful son, family obligation. By the time they finished, I felt sick. They were good. They made it sound so reasonable, so clear. Of course Ronald should keep paying. Of course he abandoned them unfairly. Then Beth stood up. Your Honor, the plaintiff's narrative is compelling. It's also almost entirely false. She started with the rental income. My parents had converted their basement into an apartment 2 years ago and rented it out for $1,200 per month. They'd collected $28,800 in rental income and never reported it on their tax returns. They claimed financial hardship while collecting substantial unreported income, Beth said. Frank objected. The judge overruled. Beth presented my father's pay stubs from his part-time job. He'd been working for 18 months, earning $40,000 annually. Combined with my mother's income of $22,000 and the rental income, they were making close to $75,000 a year. They weren't struggling, Beth said. They were freeloading. Then came the trust documents. Beth walked through the whole timeline. My grandmother's trust, the $60,000, my parents' breach of fiduciary duty, the stolen inheritance used for home renovations and a European vacation. While the plaintiffs claim Ronald created dependency, they themselves were stealing from him for years. They took his inheritance and his mortgage payments, all while treating him with contempt. My mother started crying on the witness stand. My father's face was red. Then Beth dropped the bomb. She presented Marcus's email thread. The courtroom went silent as she read the emails aloud. The plan to provoke me, the finder's fee, the developer friend, all of it. This lawsuit wasn't about protecting elderly parents, Beth said. It was a con job orchestrated by the plaintiff's own son to generate money for himself. Marcus went pale. Frank was frantically whispering to my parents, but Beth wasn't done. She called Ray, the private investigator, to the stand. He testified about Marcus's gambling debts, about the power of attorney, about the $35,000 Marcus had stolen from my parents' own accounts over 3 years. Marcus Hall isn't a concerned son, Ray testified. He's a con artist who manipulated his own parents into suing their youngest child for his personal financial gain. The judge asked pointed questions. How long had Marcus had power of attorney? How much money had he taken? Where were the bank statements showing this theft? Beth had everything. Every document, every bank record, every piece of evidence meticulously organized. My mother broke down completely on the stand. We just wanted to keep our house, she sobbed. Marcus said this would work. He said Ronald owed us. My father tried to maintain dignity but crumbled under questioning. Yes, they'd known I was paying the mortgage. Yes, they'd never thanked me. Yes, Marcus had suggested they provoke me into leaving. But we didn't think he'd actually sue us, my father said weakly. You sued him first, the judge pointed out. Marcus was hostile when Beth questioned him. He denied everything, claimed the emails were taken out of context, insisted he was just trying to help. You're trying to help yourself to $20,000, Beth said. That's a legitimate finder's fee for manipulating your parents into selling their home. He didn't have a good answer. Jennifer, watching via video, suddenly disconnected, just logged off mid-trial. After 2 hours of testimony and evidence, Judge Hernandez called for a recess. When we returned, she had her decision. I've seen a lot of family disputes in this courtroom, she began, but this case is particularly disturbing. The plaintiffs claim that the defendant created financial dependency is undermined by evidence showing they were not, in fact, dependent. They had substantial income they chose not to disclose. More troublingly, they participated in what can only be described as a conspiracy to defraud their own son. She looked directly at Marcus. Mr. Hall, I'm referring your actions to the District Attorney's Office for investigation of financial elder abuse and fraud. Marcus stood up. You can't do that. Sit down, the judge ordered. I absolutely can, and I am. She turned to my parents. As for you, I'm dismissing your lawsuit in its entirety. Furthermore, I'm granting the defendant's counterclaim. You are hereby ordered to repay Ronald Hall the sum of $72,000 for the misappropriated trust funds, payable at $500 per month until satisfied. We can't afford that, my mother cried. You can afford to rent out your basement. You can afford to work. You can afford to cut expenses. What you cannot afford is to continue exploiting your son. The judge looked at Marcus again. You are ordered to repay the $35,000 you stole via power of attorney. I'm ordering restitution at the rate of $1,000 per month." She slammed the gavel. "We're adjourned." I walked out of the courtroom in a daze. Beth was grinning. "We won," she said. "We won everything." But I didn't feel victorious. I felt empty. My parents tried to approach me in the hallway. My mother was still crying. "Ronald, please. We're sorry. We made a mistake. Can't we just talk about this?" I walked past them without a word. Marcus caught up with me at the elevator. "You're going to regret this," he hissed. "You've destroyed this family." I looked at him, really looked at him. This man who I'd looked up to as a kid. This person who'd orchestrated my destruction for $20,000. "No," I said quietly. "You all destroyed it years ago. I just stopped letting you destroy me." The elevator doors closed on his furious face. 3 days after the trial, I was fired from my job. The 30-day leave period had ended, and Tom called to tell me they were going in a different direction. The trial had been covered in the local legal news. My name was attached to a family lawsuit. They didn't want the drama. I couldn't afford my apartment anymore. I'd been approved for unemployment benefits, but that was only $350 a week. Not nearly enough to cover rent, utilities, food, and the massive credit card debt I'd accumulated. I put my furniture up for sale. Sold my couch, my dining table, my TV. Kept only what I could fit in my car if it came to that. I sat in my nearly empty apartment that night, looking around at the blank walls and missing furniture. I'd won the lawsuit. I'd exposed my family's betrayal. I'd stood up for myself. And I'd lost everything else. No job, no girlfriend, no family, no savings. Just me, an empty apartment I couldn't afford, and the slowly dawning realization that being right didn't pay the bills. I thought about my grandmother again, about the trust she'd left me, the money my parents had stolen. Would she be proud of me for fighting, or would she be sad that her family had imploded? That night was the lowest point. I seriously considered just giving up, letting my parents have what they wanted, walking away from all of it, and starting over somewhere new with nothing. I don't know what stopped me. Maybe stubbornness, maybe spite, maybe just the knowledge that if I gave up now, everything I'd been through would be meaningless. I fell asleep on the floor that night, too tired to even make it to my mattress. I woke up to my phone ringing. It was Diana, my former coworker. "Hey, I heard what happened," she said. "With the job, I mean. That's garbage." "Thanks," I said, my voice hoarse. "Listen, I don't know if you heard, but I left the company 2 months ago. I'm starting my own tech consulting firm. It's small, just me and 2 other developers right now. But we're growing. We just landed a major client, and I need someone good, someone I can trust. Interested?" I sat up. "Seriously?" "Seriously. I followed your situation, Ronald. The whole lawsuit thing. What your family did to you was disgusting. But it also showed me you've got integrity. You stood up when it mattered. That's the kind of person I want in my company." "What's the position?" "Senior developer with equity. We're doing a profit-sharing model. 5% equity stake for early employees. The salary is $115,000 to start. Better than what you were making before." I couldn't speak. This couldn't be real. "Ronald? You there?" "Yeah. Yes. I'm interested. I'm very interested." "Great. Can you come by the office tomorrow? It's just a small space in North Austin right now, but it's ours." I went to the interview the next day. The office was indeed small, just 3 rooms in a shared workspace building, but Diana was passionate about her vision. Her other 2 developers, both women in their late 20s, were smart and enthusiastic. "We're building something different here," Diana said. "A company where people matter more than profits, where work-life balance isn't just a buzzword, where you're valued for what you contribute, not how many hours you clock." I started the following Monday. The work was challenging, but rewarding. Diana's client was a healthcare startup that needed a complete system overhaul. I threw myself into it, grateful for the distraction and the purpose. The first payment from my parents arrived 2 weeks later. $500 automatically deposited into my account. It would take 12 years to repay the full $72,000, but it was something. It was acknowledgement. Marcus's first payment came a month after that, $1,000. He was under criminal investigation, and his lawyer had advised him to make restitution promptly. I moved to a new apartment in a different neighborhood. 1 bedroom, 600 square feet, but it was mine. Fresh start, clean slate. The rent was $1,200, manageable with my new salary. I continued therapy with Dr. Hughes twice a week. She helped me process everything: the betrayal, the lawsuit, the isolation. Slowly, I started to feel human again. My cousin Patricia reached out with a genuine apology. She'd done her own investigation after the trial and learned the full truth. She posted a public apology on social media, clearing my name. Other extended family members followed suit. The narrative shifted. I went from being the ungrateful son to the son who stood up to abuse. I received dozens of messages from people apologizing for judging me. I appreciated them, but I also realized I didn't need their validation anymore. I knew the truth. That was enough. 3 months after the trial, I met Emily. She was a graphic designer, and we ran into each other at a coffee shop near my new apartment. She spilled her latte. I helped her clean it up, and somehow we ended up talking for 2 hours. When I eventually told her about my family situation, she didn't run. She listened, asked questions, and then said, "That must have been really hard. I'm glad you stood up for yourself." No judgment, no drama, just acceptance. We started dating. She was different from Sarah in every way. More independent, more confident, more willing to deal with complicated situations. We took things slow, building trust gradually. Work continued to go well. The healthcare startup project was a success. We delivered ahead of schedule and under budget. Diana landed 2 more major clients. The company grew to 8 people. My equity stake was worth real money now. 6 months after the trial, my mother appeared at my new apartment. I don't know how she found my address, but there she was, standing at my door on a Saturday morning. She looked older, smaller, somehow. Her hair was grayer than I remembered. "Ronald," she said. "Please, can we talk?" I let her in. I don't know why. Maybe curiosity, maybe some lingering hope. We sat in my living room. She looked around at my modest furniture, my laptop on the coffee table, the life I'd built without her. "Your father and I have been going to therapy," she said. "We're trying to understand what we did wrong, how we let Marcus manipulate us, how we treated you." I didn't say anything. I know we can't undo what happened. I know sorry isn't enough, but I am sorry. I'm so sorry, Ronald. We were terrible parents. We took you for granted. We let our pride and our financial fears turn us into people we shouldn't have been. "You knew I was paying the mortgage for 18 months, I said. "You never said thank you. Not once." "I know. We were ashamed. We didn't want to admit we needed help. So we pretended we didn't know. And then we resented you for helping because it made us feel small. That's twisted. I know. That's what the therapist says too." She wiped her eyes. "Your father wanted to come, but I told him I needed to do this alone. He sends his love." "Does he?" "Yes, he does. We both do. We always have, even when we didn't show it. Even when we showed the opposite." I wanted to believe her. Part of me, the part that was still a child wanting his parents' love, wanted to say it was okay. We could start over. We could be a family again. But I couldn't. Not yet. "Maybe someday," I said. "Maybe we can have a relationship again. But not now. I need to heal. I need to protect myself. Can you understand that?" She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I understand. Take all the time you need. We'll be here when you're ready. If you're ever ready." She left. I watched her walk to her car, and I felt something shift inside me. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But maybe the possibility of forgiveness, someday, in the distant future. That was enough for now. Marcus went to prison. 18 months for fraud and financial elder abuse. His medical license was suspended. His life fell apart, and I felt nothing about it. Not satisfaction, not vindication, just nothing. He'd made his choices. Jennifer sent a long email apologizing for not standing up for me, for being a coward, for choosing the easy path. I read it and then deleted it. Maybe someday I'd respond. Maybe not. At work, I thrived. Diana made me a partner after a year, increasing my equity to 10%. We landed a contract worth $3 million. The company was growing fast, and I was growing with it. Emily and I moved in together after dating for 8 months. It felt natural, easy. She decorated our apartment with plants and art. I built us a custom computer desk. We adopted a cat named Algorithm. Life wasn't perfect. I still had panic attacks sometimes. I still had trust issues. Therapy continued. But I was healing. One evening, about a year after the trial, I was sitting at my desk looking at an old photo of my grandmother. Emily came over and put her hand on my shoulder. "You okay?" she asked. "Yeah. Just thinking about her. About what she'd think of all this. I bet she'd be proud of you." "You think? You stood up for yourself. You didn't let them destroy you. You built something good out of something terrible." "Yeah. I think she'd be very proud." I put the photo back on the shelf. Emily was right. My grandmother had left me that trust because she believed in me. She believed I could build a good life. And despite everything, despite the betrayal and the pain and the loss, I had. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. After a year of silence. "I'm getting out next month. Thought you should know." I stared at the message for a long time. Then I deleted it and put the phone down. "Everything okay?" Emily asked. "Yeah," I said. "Everything's fine." And it was. Not perfect, but fine. Good, even. I'd learned that family isn't just about blood. It's about how people treat you. It's about respect and love and basic human decency. My biological family had failed that test spectacularly, but I'd found a new family. Diana and my coworkers who stood by me. Emily, who loved me without judgment. Dr. Hughes, who helped me heal. Even Algorithm the cat, who purred on my lap while I worked. I'd learned that fighting back isn't about revenge. It's about self-preservation. It's about saying I deserve better than this, and meaning it. I'd learned that you can lose everything and still rebuild. That rock bottom is a foundation, if you're strong enough to build on it. Most importantly, I'd learned that the people who are supposed to love you most can sometimes hurt you worst. And that's not your failure, it's theirs. Looking out the window at the Austin skyline, I thought about the man I was a year ago. Desperate, broken, drowning. And I thought about the man I was now. Still healing, but stronger. Still hurting, but building something good. My grandmother's trust money was being repaid slowly. The mortgage payments I'd made would never be returned. The 3 years I'd sacrificed would never come back. But I had something more valuable. My self-respect. My boundaries. My life. On my terms. That night, Emily and I cooked dinner together. We talked about work, about plans for the weekend, about maybe getting a second cat. Normal things. Happy things. As I fell asleep that night, Emily next to me, Algorithm curled up at the foot of the bed, I realized something profound. I was okay. After everything, despite everything, I was genuinely okay. And that was the greatest victory of all. So let me ask you something. Have you ever had to stand up to your own family? Have you ever been in a situation where doing the right thing cost you everything? How do you know when it's time to walk away from people who are supposed to love you? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel. And if you're not already subscribed, please consider subscribing. There are more stories like this one, and I'd love to have you along for the journey. Share this video with someone who might need to hear it. Someone who's struggling with family drama or feeling guilty about setting boundaries. Sometimes people need to know they're not alone in these situations. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here. I hope wherever you are, whatever you're going through, you remember that you deserve to be treated with respect and love. And if you're not getting that, it's okay to walk away. It's okay to choose yourself. Take care of yourselves. Be kind to each other. And remember, family is who shows up for you, not just who you're related to. Until next time.